This second generation CHR takes the successful formula established by its predecessor and improves it in most key areas, which means this small coupe crossover is a little better to drive, slightly more practical, and arguably smarter to look at too. There's even now plug-in hybrid tech if you want it.
Toyota's been producing so-called European cars for decades, but the CHR, originally launched back in 2017, was the first one that really felt properly targeted at the preferences of our continent. Here's the second generation version. This small coupe crossover was, and still is, built in Europe, just about, in Turkey to be exact. It was developed in its capital, Brussels, and in first generation form sold like hotcakes, amassing 840,000 owners in 6 years and quickly becoming the brand's fourth best-selling model, with 59% of customers poached from other manufacturers. So hopes were high for this, the second generation CHR, introduced by Toyota in the autumn of 2023. With the original model, Toyota's plan was to sell the CHR to 30-something hipsters, with a typical customer pictured by the salespeople as an annoyingly trendy marketing avatar called Valentino. In reality, most owners turned out to be substantially older than that. So, with this second-generation model, Valentino has been replaced by another, even more irritatingly fashionable avatar, Angelo. And much more significantly, in the brand's attempt to target younger buyers, the CHR itself has been made sharper to drive, smarter and better connected. As before, the CHR is a small crossover, and it's still pretty much unique in the way that it combines a full hybrid engine with a rakish coupe SUV body shape, a look the designers have this time tried to balance with more practical rear seat and boot space. Plus, the hybrid engine range has been broadened with the addition of a PHEV variant to give this model line longevity in markets about to make the switch to full EVs. Sounds promising, but in a much more crowded and quickly evolving segment, does this second generation CHR have what it takes to sell in the same impressive numbers as its predecessor? Well, to find out, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. You don't expect a compact hybrid Toyota to be sporty, but the CHR has always tried its hardest to be just that. And from the looks of things, it's continuing to do so in this second generation form. Despite the designer's efforts with the driver-focused cockpit, it doesn't particularly feel that way behind the wheel. As with any other hybrid Toyota, once you've located the start button, here hidden behind the left column stalk, the virtual dials illuminate and the complicated Synergy Drive powertrain springs into life with an assorted selection of background whirs like an orchestra tuning up. The trumpet section, the fairly vocal engine, chips in pretty soon, mind you, which, along with a green ready message on the bottom left of the instrument screen, informs you that the drivetrain is prepared for you to click the diddy little gear stick to the right and down so the car can set off. Time to try it. The original CHR never really got many press plaudits, but it was a small Toyota that sold by the bucket load and achieved quite a lot, resetting customer expectations about how engaging one of the brand's compact hatches could be, and about how sporty a small SUV could be. At the beginning of this century's second decade, company president Akio Toyoda had decided he wanted his cars to be more fun to drive, and tasked part-time race driver Haruyuki Koiba as the CHR project's chief engineer. Koiba-san spent many months with a team that pounded development models around European roads, a program that included several stints in Britain and a race with a prototype model at the Nürburgring. Then he dismayed the Tokyo bean counters by insisting on a motorsport-inspired, independent, double wishbone suspension arrangement and bespoke European-made Sachs dampers. The result was a very different kind of small Toyota hybrid, but still one rather limited by the languid responses of a hybrid powertrain originally designed for suburbia rather than Silverstone. In the years since, though, there's been plenty of time for the engineers to work on this issue, and sure enough, this Mark II CHR needs less mental adjustment if you're coming to it from a car without a fully electrified powertrain. You might not expect that because at first glance the core engines on offer here, the 1.8 and 2 litre full hybrids, seem much the same as they were in the later versions of the previous model, but much is different. As before, you're never quite certain where the source of motion power is coming from, generator, battery or engine. And also as before, heavy throttle applications see the left-hand power meter dial lurching violently backwards and forwards like a windmill. But this time round, a better optimised level of throttle calibration means that there's far less lag between requesting extra acceleration and it actually being delivered. Nor is the elastic band mooing of the eCVT auto gearbox quite as prominent. On undulating roads, new adaptive hill control logic modifies acceleration according to the incline, and for quieter running, engine speeds during highway driving have been reduced by up to 500 RPM, improving refinement. The hybrid engines have more power too, with the 1.8 litre VVTi unit almost everyone will still choose, up from 122 to 138 bhp, taking nearly a second off the 0 to 62 mph sprint time, now 10.2 seconds, and more importantly boosting mid-range pulling power by a significant 43 Nm, now 185 Nm, enough to make overtaking that swaying Arctic in front slightly less than a white-knuckle affair than it was before. Those increases come courtesy of a new transaxle, a new power control unit, and a new, more compact, high-power lithium-ion battery beneath the rear seat, which weighs 1.5 kilograms less but provides 14% more output. To suit the enviro mood of the moment, the distinctly modest top speed is much as before, limited to 106 miles an hour. The updated version of the Mark I CHR we tried back in 2020 introduced a larger capacity 2 litre version of this hybrid powertrain to this model line, and that's been carried through to this Mark II version. In fact, we're trying it here. This gets far fewer engineering changes than the higher volume smaller unit, but it does also get more power, up from 182 to 195 bhp. Which propels this Toyota along with more of the kind of urgency its rakish looks suggest it ought to have, with 206 Nm of torque and 62 miles an hour dispatched in a far more satisfying 8.1 seconds en route to a maximum limited to 112 miles an hour. This 2 litre engine's also the basis for the freshly introduced CHR variant that at the time of the Mark I model's introduction, Toyota said it wasn't going to make, a plug-in hybrid version. The exact quote at the time ran something along the lines of, "The environmental benefits of plug-in are largely illusory, and there's much more benefit in producing lots of small, fuel-efficient hybrid cars." Nothing like a U-turn, is there? Which was needed in a market where now an increasing number of customers want to plug in but don't want an EV. Hence the reason why the brand's current Prius wants the archetypal self-charging hybrid, now only comes in PHEV form. The 2-motor hybrid powertrain in that car is basically the same as this one, with a useful 223 brake horsepower total output, which dispatches the 62 mile an hour sprint in 7.3 seconds, despite the extra weight of a 13.8 kilowatt-hour battery that when fully charged is supposed to be able to take you up to 41 miles between spells of replenishment. We'll cover the plug-in hybrid CHR in more detail for you in a separate film, but spoiler alert, several hundred kilograms of weight means that it won't feel as agile through the turns as this conventional hybrid model does. That agility is aided in this Mark II model by the change from the old car's Prius-derived GAC platform to a much tauter a more rigid TNGA-C architecture this time round, borrowed from the Corolla, to which a more rigid and lightweight suspension setup has been bolted. It's not quite enough to dial out all of the noticeable body roll that still afflicted the previous model at speed through tighter bends, but the handling's certainly now a touch more engaging, aided by precise, well-weighted steering feedback, though it's not exactly brimming with feel. Even if you engage the fieriest red-themed Sport drive mode, the others are grey-themed Normal and Custom, and turquoise-themed Eco. As usual with a Toyota, there's an EV battery-only setting too, but you won't generally want to bother with that because much of the time, when the drive battery's not sufficiently replenished, it won't work, and when it does, it won't actually take you very far at all. Ride quality from the front McPherson strut and rear multi-link setup has been kept on the firm side in order to provide the car's intended positive handling vibe, and you'll certainly feel that stiffness over speed humps and tarmac tears. But provided you don't choose a really large wheel rim size, it's nothing you couldn't live with, and would be better still if Toyota was prepared to give these hybrid models the clever ZF frequency sensitive shock absorbers it currently limits to the PHEV version, which are supposed to improve the ride over high frequency bumps. Another CHR engineering addition limited to the PHEV model is a twin piston brake setup with bigger 406mm front discs. But you don't really need that because the now improved standard setup works well, smoothly blending friction and regeneration braking, the latter emphasised if, as you should, you habitually drive the car in its B rather than its standard D transmission setting. With B engaged, there's enough retardation off throttle to make left pedal applications relatively few and far between in regular driving. Whatever flavour of CHR you choose, we should point out that it'll always be front driven, which is a slight disappointment given that the same drivetrain in a Yaris Cross or a Lexus LBX comes with a top range E4 all-wheel drive option that adds another electric motor on the rear axle. Toyota offers a CHR in this form in other markets, but won't sell that variant here. Still, of more importance to most customers will be the extra technology that's been added here. The way, for instance, that the new ambient lighting system combines with the safety cameras to warn you of danger. And there's an adaptive cruise control system that can adapt the car's speed through the turns. And on top models, a rear sonar system that makes parking bumps almost impossible, and a lane change assist setup that changes highway lanes for you. This CHR has, you see, grown in sophistication, but it still wants you to believe in its youthful vibe. And you just might. If you liked the edgily styled original version of this model, it's likely that you'll also appreciate the visual efforts Toyota's made with its replacement. As before, dramatic lines, sharp bodywork creases and sculpted headlights catch the eye, all part of what Toyota calls the sensuous style of a concept car for the road. Contrary to expectations, this Mark II model is a little smaller than its predecessor. You might note this 25mm reduction in the front overhang, and the car now sits 15mm lower, the result being a more condensed package, supposed to look poised and dynamic from every angle. And more premium, hence the introduction of flush-fitting door handles and greater attention to detail achieved through innovative production techniques. Take, for instance, the tighter shut lines and the way the back door directly abuts the rear lamp unit with no need for a frame, giving a sharper look. Finishing touches push the car up market as well, like the bi-tone paint design you get on plusher models like this one, and larger wheels that can now be up to 20 inches in size. We've got 19-inch rims here. The front end isn't perhaps this rejuvenated CHR's prettiest angle, but there's certainly a dose of extra overtaking presence from the new hammerhead-style nose. This includes striking full LED headlights with integrated turn indicators in an eye-catching arrow-shaped design. There's also cleaner integration of elements like the camera and radar systems into this huge, lower latticed grille which surrounds the number plate and incorporates beady little LED fog lights. And at the back, well, as you can see, that bitone finish extends into the rear quarters. And to emphasise the 35mm width increase, and to suit the trend of the moment, there's a full-width rear light bar with an integrated model name that gets illuminated in the welcome and goodbye sequences. An unusual roof spoiler with corner ear sections adds a finishing touch. Annoyingly, though, the previous model's rear wiper has been deleted, supposedly to improve aerodynamic performance, though that's not especially impressive, rated at 0.318 CD. Toyota says you don't need that wiper because the rear screen has been angled so that water drops slide away, but that won't help you if you get into the car when it's been parked overnight under a tree. Okay, time to take a look inside, on the way to which we'll reference the welcome scenario that automatically unfolds as the driver approaches the vehicle with a brightening of exterior lights, including that new light bar and the puddle lamps. As you approach, your preferential settings for seat position, digital instrument display, head-up display and multimedia screen are automatically applied. And if you've activated the provided MyT app, you'll be able to precondition the cabin temperature and activate a digital key function that will allow you to unlock the car with your smartphone. At which point the flush-fitting door handles noisily pop out to greet you. And behind the wheel, well, it's a big improvement on the dark plasticky cabin that was served up by this car's predecessor. A model which looked a lot less appealing inside than it did when you were admiring it in the showroom. This replacement CHR still isn't quite as premium inside as Toyota thinks it is. If that's a priority, try considering much the same mechanical package in the form of the similarly priced Lexus LBX. But compared to the previous model, material quality has been given a big lift with various contrasting soft-touch surfaces that sit alongside all the recycled plastics and fabrics this car needs to support its eco-credentials. The suede effect lining you get on the door cards of plusher variants like this one is particularly nice. And across the range you also get some interesting touches of design, like the circular jet engine style black vents you get at either end of the fascia, and so-called sail panels that extend from the corners of the top of the dash into the doors, where they gain interactive ambient lighting strips. It's all very much built around the driver, a cocooning vibe, emphasised by this angled buttress that connects one side of the lower console to the centre stack. It's a surprisingly wide cabin as well, so you won't feel like you're rubbing shoulders with your front passenger. You don't sit as high up as with some class SUV rivals, but you might well like the sportier feel that brings. And it's easy to find a decent driving position on generally supportive seats that lack only for a bit of upper back support and do without lumbar support with base trim. This part suede effect upholstery, by the way, is 45% made from old bottles. Cheaper Icon and Design variants get seat fabric 100% made from recycled bottles. What else? Well, there are proper separated climate buttons below the centre vents, and through the stitched vegan leather 3-spoke steering wheel you view a smart digital combi meter instrument binnacle, which as here will be 12.3 inches in size provided you avoid base trim, which makes do with a smaller 7-inch setup. This display can be adjusted to prioritise different content according to driver preference for the kind of journey being made. For example, making the active ADAS function information prominent when joining the highway. There are 3 preset screen layouts which can be personalised using switches on the steering wheel. A lot of your first impressions, though, are going to be dominated by the infotainment screen tech, which is an even bigger step over what went before. Toyota says its aim here was to provide a clear and intuitive experience for people who expect their car to provide an extension of their connected digital environment, which actually is a blandly generic development concept, rather ignoring the fact that an extremely high proportion of CHR sales go to people of pensionable age. Fortunately, just about everyone ought to be able to enjoy a positive user experience with this redeveloped setup, particularly if they're able to stretch from the Smart Connect 8-inch screen you get with standard spec up to the big Smart Connect Plus 12.3-inch monitor fitted to pricier variants, and which is what we have here. It's positioned helpfully high up on the dashboard and angled toward the driver, plus its graphics are sharp, the screen runs quickly, and there's some logic in the way you switch between menus. Cloud-based navigation, over-the-air updates, and wireless smartphone integration with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto all come as standard across the range. There's voice recognition as well, though it's not as intuitive as the systems you'll find on rival premium brand models. What Toyota couldn't fix, because of the kind of car this has to be, was rearward visibility, poor in the old car and only marginally better in this one thanks to the rakish C-pillar and letterbox-like rear screen, which makes it all the more disappointing that base trim does without rear parking sensors, though fortunately a rear view camera is standard across the range and you get all-round sensors above base trim. You'd ideally want these because frontward visibility takes a little getting used to as well, the windscreen stretching away beyond a very deep dashboard with a bonnet beyond that slopes out of view, making judging the car's extremities when parking a little challenging. Once you've got used to the various view restrictions, there are trendy compensations. The little JBL A-pillar speakers you get on top models are neat, and the unusual surface patterning you get beneath them and on the door pockets is interesting. But if you grasp the side of these door pockets, or more likely clasp the rubberized gear lever, this cabin's intended feeling of premiumness evaporates quite quickly. We like the new ambient lighting system though, which can display in up to 64 colours, and which earlier we described as interactive. It really is. As with some pricier cars, it can reinforce the camera safety systems, glowing red for example when the safe exit assist setups, warning you not to open a door in the face of an oncoming vehicle or cyclist. It's interactively luxurious too, able to set colours to reflect cabin temperature, and offer a programme of 24 changing shades, synchronised with the passing of each hour to progress from bright morning tones to more relaxing ones in the evening. You wouldn't expect a style-led small SUV like this to be particularly practical, and it isn't. Note these particularly slender door pockets. But all the basics are covered off. A reasonably sized glove box has a ledge area above it. Plus there are twin cup holders next to the gear lever and a deep lidded box between driver and passenger that includes a lift-out tray, a 12-volt socket and a USB-C port. A further USB-C port is located in this storage area at the base of the centre stack, where there's space for the wireless charging mat you get in top variants. An overhead sunglasses compartment has been omitted, as have, more surprisingly, ticket clips in the sun visors. Okay, time to take a look in the rear, where the handles for the rear doors are now conventionally sighted. Previously, they were embedded into the C-pillar. And the angle of the rear roof pillar means that parents will need to duck down in order to lean in and strap up any child seats. Now, if you own the original version of this car, this whole rear seat area is where you might be hoping to see a few improvements. That Mark I model offered rear seat folk cramped legroom, tiny side windows, and a rather airless, pokey space to which even children sometimes objected. Toyota claims it's improved things this time round by moving the side window further back into the C-pillars behind the rear doors. These don't open particularly wide though. And once inside, well, yes, there is a slight improvement in the light you get back here, but it's still pretty dark and enclosed. The side windows are still small, and there's virtually no enhancement when it comes to the question of legroom, because the 2,640mm wheelbase length isn't any different from before. As previously, this certainly isn't a family car, and if you're planning to use it to regularly transport children, we'd suggest bringing them along on a test drive to make sure they'd be happy with it. CHR money, it needs to be pointed out, would pretty much get you a medium-sized SUV rather than a small one like this, and of course one of those would give you vastly more rear seat room. You get a more upmarket backseat vibe too, because in a CHR the rear part of the interior feels a lot more plasticky than at the front. A third centre-seated adult back here really would feel squashed, but who is ever really going to want to transport 3 adults in the back of a CHR? Well, you might hope that the backrest would recline as it does in some rivals, but alas not. And of course the seat base doesn't slide either. Plusher variants try to make amends by offering the sky view panoramic glass roof we've got fitted to this test car, which Toyota has designed so that it doesn't need a shade. That would impinge on headroom, which certainly doesn't need to be any more restricted than it already is, thanks to the sloping roofline. Actually, the brand says that with the Skyview option fitted, there's 3 centimetres more headroom than there would otherwise be, and it certainly gives the cabin back here a much needed extra dose of light. There's not much stowage space back here. You do without door bins entirely. There's just this circular cup holder in each door, a centre armrest, and rather meanly, if you're sitting behind the driver, a seat back pocket. They're all missing. There's only one on the passenger side. You do, of course, get the usual outer seat ISOFIX child seat attachment points, which have plastic covers and are easy to slot into. Let's finish with a look at boot space. Avoid base trim and the tailgate's powered, rising to reveal a load capacity that for the 1.8 litre hybrid most will choose is rated at 388 litres. That falls to 364 in this 2 litre hybrid model due to its higher boot floor. The bigger capacity powertrain's 12-volt battery must be placed beneath it. But you can still fit 6 carry-on suitcases in, the same as you'd get in a Lexus LBX or an Audi Q2. For reference, the 1.8 litre model's figure is 11 litres more than the previous generation model and 56 litres more than you'd get in a Lexus LBX. But it's not as well packaged as Toyota's cheaper Yaris Cross, which has a 397 litre boot. Unfortunately, there's no height adjustable boot floor offered, so in getting heavier items in, you'll have to negotiate quite a high tailgate aperture. Nor is there space beneath the cargo base for anything much other than items you might have recently run over. As you'd expect, there are 4 floor tie-down points, 2 cargo sidewall bag hooks, and a light on the right-hand side. Toyota doesn't offer either a ski hatch or a convenient 40-20-40 rear seat back split. So if you've got a couple of rear seat occupants, longer items like the skis will have to go on the roof. If you want to flatten the backrest, there aren't any cargo sidewall catches to do it, so you have to stretch to activate these buttons next to the rear headrests or go round to the side of the car to do it. Here we're focusing on the self-charging hybrid version of this CHR, a model that at the time of this test in early 2024 was priced from just over £31,000. But that's in the rather spartanly equipped Icon form that few customers will want. Most will be starting their perusal of the range from mid-level design spec, priced from just under £35,000 as we filmed. A top version like this one really does require quite a plump budget. At the time of this review, the Plush XL version costing from around £38,000. All the CHR variants we've so far mentioned are powered by the brand's usual 140 horsepower 1.8 litre VVT-i hybrid engine. To get the 197 horsepower 2 litre hybrid unit we've been trying here, you've to stretch the top GR Sport trim, which will require a £40,000 budget. We're not focusing here on the alternative plug-in hybrid version, but if you want that, you'll probably need to think in terms of a £40,000 to £45,000 budget. All CHR models, including that PHEV, are front-driven and, as ever with any full hybrid, must be had with auto transmission. So you've got to really want this CHR's extra style. If you're not too fussed about that, but like the idea of a small Toyota hybrid crossover, then you're better off opting for the similarly sized but frumpier looking Yaris Cross, priced in the £25,000 to £30,000 bracket. Arguably a closer Toyota developed rival is the Lexus LBX, also boxier than a CHR but more premium feeling, a car which uses the same drivetrain and has a very similar price band to a CHR. In terms of rivals from other brands, well, other reviews you'll have read and seen will reference conventional small SUVs like Ford's Puma, Renault's Captur, and Nissan's Juke as rivals, but crossovers like those really compete more directly with the Yaris Cross model we just mentioned. And anyway, most of them aren't full hybrids. Finding a rival that really does directly replicate the coupe-like look and hybrid powertrain of this Toyota is actually quite difficult, which is possibly why this car sold so well in its original form. In terms of coupe-like SUV body shape, the closest match would be Volkswagen's Taigo, which was priced from around £27,000 as we filmed. But that car's cheaper because it's not offered as a hybrid. If you simply wanted an alternative small SUV full hybrid, then the Renault-Nissan alliance supplies a full hybrid unit that sits in pricier versions of the Renault Captur from around £25,000 and the Nissan Juke from around £28,000, while slightly larger models like hybrid versions of the Kia Niro and the Hyundai Kona cost from around £30,000. By the way, don't be confused by the hybrid badges applied in the small SUV segment to cars like the Ford Puma and the Kia Stonic. Those are 48-volt mild hybrids, which, as you'll note from the efficiency stats of those cars, isn't the same thing at all. If, having considered all of that, you conclude quite reasonably that there's nothing quite like a CHR, then you're going to need to know just how generous Toyota's been with the standard spec of this Mark II model. So let's take a look at that now. Remember that, as with all Toyotas, all CHR owners will be able to remotely interact with their car with the MyT smartphone app. This gives access to useful information such as driving data, hybrid coaching and car status, plus a Find My Car function and remote activation of the hazard lights. It also enables door locking and unlocking, window opening and closing, and remote operation of the climate control to defrost the screen or heat or cool the cabin prior to starting. Right, on to spec. The base Icon grade features 17-inch alloy wheels, LED parabola headlights, LED tail lamps, flush door handles, puddle lamps, powered door mirrors with an auto folding function, smart entry, auto headlamps and wipers, an alarm and the signature CHR rear light bar. Plus there are EV, Eco, Normal, Sport and Custom drive modes. In the cabin, convenience details include a reversing camera, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, automatic air conditioning, a pollen filter, and a front USB-C device charging port. Rather disappointingly, given the car's restricted rearward vision, rear parking sensors aren't included. And at this base level in the range, you have to accept smaller cabin screens than are fitted elsewhere in the lineup. Icon spec comes only with a 7-inch driver's instrument combi meter and an 8-inch Toyota Smart Connect multimedia centre monitor, though the latter does come with cloud-based navigation, over-the-air updates, a 6-speaker DAB audio system, and wireless smartphone integration with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. As we said though, you'll probably want to ignore Icon spec and start your perusal of the range from the design grade, which corrects the omissions of the base model. So there are rear parking sensors and properly large 12.3-inch screens for the instrument binnacle combi meter and the infotainment system, the latter being the Toyota Smart Connect Plus setup. Plus, design spec gets you larger 18-inch alloy wheels with a machined finish, rear privacy glass, a power tailgate and front parking sensors, which, like those at the rear, come with an automatic brake function. If you can stretch to plush XL spec, then you'll get a CHR closer to the kind of car we have here, which is actually the Premier Edition version that was sold for a short time after launch. XL spec gets you 19-inch machined alloy wheels, bitone exterior paintwork, cornering lights, also headlamp levelling, a sky view panoramic roof and some extra camera safety features which I'll cover off for you in a moment. Inside, XL customers get front sport seats with suede effect upholstery and powered driver's chair adjustment, plus ambient interior lighting with 64 colour settings, a Nano X air quality system and a panoramic view monitor, which provides 360-degree imaging of the car's immediate surroundings for safe and accurate manoeuvring. That's aided by an ICS or Intelligent Clearance Sonar system that covers the rear of the vehicle when you're parking, allowing the car to sense impending obstacles, say a low brick wall or bollard you haven't noticed. If you want more with a CHR XL, your dealer will point you to that particular variant's specific tech pack, which gives you a digital rear view mirror, a head-up display, and allows your MyT app to change your smartphone into a digital key. Now, finally, let's consider the top GR Sport grade, which, as we said earlier, gets this different 2-litre version of the hybrid engine. This flagship variant adds 20-inch machined GR Sport alloys, a head-up display, and a 9-speaker JBL premium audio system, plus Bitone Plus paintwork, along with exterior and interior styling flourishes and details inspired by Toyota Gazoo Racing. You don't get the XL version's Skyview panoramic glass roof, intelligent clearance sonar system, or automatic headlight levelling, but you can add those features back in as part of the optional premium pack we've been trying here, which also includes the digital key feature we just mentioned. Okay, what about extra cost features across the range? Well, you'll want to start by finalising paint choice. Base Icon spec only comes with the duller monotone colours, but with the design grade, you can also specify the contrasting bitone paint finish that comes with the XL version. Now, as we said earlier, top GR Sport spec gets you the even more exclusive Bitone Plus finish we've got here. And to further make a mainstream CHR stand out in the gym car park, you might want to add the optional Sports Pack, which gives you front, side and rear skirts. An optional Style Pack adds black side sills, a front bumper garnish and chromed fog light surround. And if you want the SUV look, you can add side steps too. As for more practical additions, well, there's a Protection Plus pack which gives you a boot liner, mud flaps, rubber floor mats and mirror protection film. With GR Sport spec, that pack includes a trunk mat as well. A detachable tow bar is also an option, as are roof crossbars for a roof box and the various carriers you might want to fit. Let's finish, as usual, with a look at safety provision, boosted by further development of the Toyota Safety Sense portfolio of active safety and driver assistance features. Their range, functionality and monitoring of the car's surroundings have been extended to provide even greater safeguards against many common accident risks, and to reduce the burden on the driver. Plus, for added convenience, future system software updates can be delivered over the air with no need for a retailer visit. The latest evolution of the autonomous braking pre-collision system and Toyota's proactive driving assist setup constantly monitor the road for hazards and can warn the driver or automatically suppress acceleration and provide braking control if an imminent collision risk is detected, such as a slower or even stationary vehicle, or perhaps pedestrians or cyclists crossing the road ahead or into which the car is going to turn. Emergency steering assist aids you with panic swerves, and lane trace assist helps keep the vehicle to its intended path, guided by road markings, the road margin, or the vehicle ahead. This also reduces the burden on the driver during long journeys, and the system works with a standard full-range adaptive cruise control system to adjust the vehicle's speed through bends on major roads and monitors the driver's use of the steering wheel and pedal. If no driver inputs are detected over a specific time, it can initiate the emergency driving stop system, bringing your CHR smoothly to a halt and activating the hazard lights. The full-range adaptive cruise control setup we just mentioned also includes an added overtake prevention support feature, which automatically prevents unintentional undertaking on multi-lane highways. Turn signal linked control helps the driver join the traffic flow to safe speed and distance from other vehicles. There's a blind spot monitor which alerts you to vehicles in your blind spot and links to a safe exit assist feature which warns if vehicles or cyclists are approaching from the rear when opening a door. On main roads and motorways, road sign assist gives a visual reminder of important warnings, commands and speed limits, and the latest version allows the driver to make a one-touch adjustment of the car's speed limiter to match the road sign information. Plus, there's a rear seat reminder system which alerts the driver if a child or a pet has been left on the back seats. If you want more, you'll need Toyota's advanced safety package, which we've been trying here and is standard on XL grade and optional at GR Sport level. This provides lane change assist, front cross traffic alert, a driver monitor camera, enhancing performance of the emergency driving stop system, and an adaptive high beam system with camera control to adjust light distribution. Of course, as before, this CHR also gets plenty of more conventional safety kit too. Twin front, side and curtain airbags, for example, plus a further airbag for the driver's knees and ISOFIX child seat mounts on the two outer rear seats. As you'd expect, there's hill start assist control to prevent the car from rolling backwards as you pull away on steep inclines, plus VSC stability control and the usual ABS braking and traction control systems. Every model in the range also comes with tyre pressure warning and the usual e-call emergency system, there to automatically alert the emergency services with your exact GPS location if the airbags go off. It's all very reassuring. Self-charging full hybrid engines are still quite rare in the segment for small crossovers. Only Nissan's Duke, Kia's Niro and Hyundai's Kona can offer petrol-electric technology of that sort in this class, and those models look pretty frumpy in comparison to this one. Let's get to the figures, which are a little down on those you'll get if you aren't quite so fashion conscious and opt for Toyota's more affordable but boxier Yaris Cross hybrid. A 1.8-litre hybrid-powered CHR can return 60.1 mpg on the combined cycle and 105 grams per kilometre of CO2. To give you some class perspective, those are almost identical figures to those you'd get with hybrid versions of the Kia Niro or the Hyundai Kona. For this 2-litre CHR hybrid, think 57.6 miles per gallon and 110 grams per kilometre of CO2. As I've said elsewhere in this review, the PHEV variant isn't our focus here, but for that, the figures are of course very different. You're looking at up to 294 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 19 grams per kilometre of CO2 with an EV range of up to 41 miles. In the real world, it'd be more like 35 miles. You can select an EV mode or use a hybrid setting that will work with the sat-nav and uses geo-fencing technology that will prioritise electric power in low emission zones. The navigation system can also suggest a route that will take into account your state of charge and identify possible charging spots. In a CHR PHEV, you can also adjust the strength of the regenerative braking. The 13.8 kilowatt-hour battery can use a 7 kilowatt charger for a home top-up that will take 2.5 hours. But let's get back to the self-charging hybrid versions of this model that you're much more likely to be considering. Toyota's improved the stats of this car only fractionally since the last time we tested it. A Mark 1 1.8-litre model on 18-inch wheels in 2020, which returned 57.6 miles per gallon and 110 grams per kilometre, which is a fraction disappointing given all the work the brand's done on its 1.8-litre VVTi hybrid engine since then. This unit's now 14% lighter, and the engineers have optimised the battery's cooling path to help prevent deterioration caused by temperature fluctuations and preserve battery life. At the same time, the brand has developed a new power control unit which helps reduce the level of electrical losses in the system by up to 14% with this 1.8-litre engine. Plus, the hybrid system's high-output motor generator now has fresh internals that promote efficiency. In addition, the gear cogs have smaller teeth, a low viscosity oil is now used to reduce internal friction, and both the transaxle and the differential are both significantly lighter. Of course, as ever, the efficiency figures you ultimately get depend heavily on the way you drive the car. Lots of tools are provided to help you here. Obviously, you'll need to default to the eco driving mode, which moderates throttle response and engine power output while tweaking the climate control. Plus, you'll also need to keep the gear stick in B rather than D to maximise regenerative braking. You'll also want to keep the needle on the left-hand instrument gauge hovering in the charge and eco sections rather than the power segment. And if you do all that, then you're going to want to monitor your CHR's ongoing frugality. The infotainment screen in the centre of the dash has a trip info segment made up of a current section, giving you an MPG readout, and a history section, graphically showing you your latest and average MPG, as well as MPG returns by date. Otherwise, all your other eco-driving tools are in the instrument binnacle. You can select an eco-zone option in the left-hand dial space that scores you on your drive efficiency in terms of starting, cruising and stopping. Or an EV driving ratio option, which on any given journey shows you the percentage of the trip and the actual period of time the car has spent in EV drive. Toyota rather ambitiously reckons that its self-charging hybrid engines are capable of covering up to 80% of a typical daily commuting drive under electric power alone. In the mixed conditions of this test, we found it to be more like 65%, but that's still a very strong performance. As usual on a Toyota hybrid, there's an available EV button that's supposed to fix the car in electrified motion, which on this 2-litre hybrid can apparently take place at up to 70 miles an hour. In reality though, you'll find that the batteries are hardly ever charged up enough for you to be able to use this feature, and even when you can, it'll only last for just over a mile. But trying to treat a hybrid engine like a plug-in hybrid is missing the point. You just leave it to do its thing, which in town means the battery is constantly recharging itself and powering the electric motor to take over from the engine, a process you can watch via a selectable energy flow monitor available on the car section of the centre screen or in smaller form in the instrument binnacle. Finally, when you power off, a trip summary pops up on the instrument screen ahead, giving you the distance you've just covered, the trip time, the percentage of the trip you've covered in EV drive, and the trip average in MPG, which during this test has rarely dropped below 50 miles per gallon. Very impressive. You might hope the improvements made to this Toyota's Synergy drive system would entitle you to significantly better treatment from the inland revenue, but sadly not. This CHR attracts a benefit in kind rating of between 26 and 27%, which isn't much less than you'd have to find for the only other real small coupe SUV in the segment, the much cheaper non-hybrid Volkswagen Taygo 1-litre TSI. But that's only part of the story. Take all aspects of your running costs into account, and the CHR hybrid's advantage over just about any conventionally powered rival you care to name is significant due to a number of factors. The most obvious one is fuel costs. That Taygo, for instance, will take you around 8 fewer miles on every gallon. But this Toyota will also give you other cost savings over more conventionally powered small SUVs. Take routine maintenance, for instance. True, garage visits are quite frequent, every 10,000 miles or 12 months, depending on which comes around the soonest. Still, there's no starter motor or alternator to go wrong, no drive belts to break, a maintenance-free timing chain, no particulate filter to get clogged up with diesel fumes, and of course, thanks to the CVT auto gearbox, there's no clutch either. The hybrid setup has a good record for minimising tyre wear, and its battery will last the life of the car. Plus, the regenerative braking setup helps extend the life of the brake pads. Over 60,000 miles of driving, the front pads should only need replacing once, while the rear pads and all discs will probably last the full distance. Hybrid models are subject to extra service checks, but Toyota doesn't charge any more to do it. There's a dedicated My Toyota website that allows you to book a service online, and Toyota has a fixed price servicing plan, so you'll know in advance exactly how much any work will cost before you check into a dealer. You could also take advantage of the optional prepaid service plan that the dealer will offer at point of purchase, this enabling CHR owners to cover the cost of routine maintenance with monthly or one-off payments in advance. What else? Well, residual values, those are reasonable but not exceptional. Independent industry experts reckon that this CHR will retain between 48 and 54% of its original value over a 3-year, 36,000 mile period, the lower figure being for XL trim and the higher one for base Icon spec. In comparison, a Hyundai Kona hybrid would manage 53 to 56% over the same period. A CHR will cost a lot more to insure than a Kona hybrid as well. That Hyundai starts at Group 16, while CHR rating starts up at Group 20 for Icon trim, with XL spec at Group 22 and the GR Sport model at Group 27. All of this technology might make you worry about this CHR model's reliability, but the Prius-derived engineering in use here scores very highly in almost every customer satisfaction survey going. Unlike earlier Toyota hybrid models, there's no extended warranty for the hybrid components. Early Priuses were covered for up to 8 years. But like other Toyotas, all CHRs come with the brand's Relax warranty package. This gives you an initial 3 years or 60,000 miles of warranty coverage. Then every time you get your CHR serviced at an authorised Toyota centre in line with its maintenance schedule, the brand will extend the warranty by a further year or 10,000 miles, up to a maximum of 10 years. Remember too that all CHRs get 5 years of pan-European roadside breakdown assistance, a 3-year paint warranty and 12 years of anti-perforation cover. As before, almost everyone who chooses a CHR will do so on the basis of the way it looks. But second time around, this car's appeal is more than skin deep. Toyota still thinks its target market is 30-something fashionistas, but the old car demonstrated a much broader customer base than that, amongst more regular folk who the company hopes will be carried forward into this successor model. We can't imagine that too many of these people will want the cost and extra weight of the added PHEV flagship version. As it always did, the CHR makes most sense in a nice level of spec, fitted with a base 1.8 litre self-charging hybrid engine and sold with a sensible price tag. In that form, we can see why you might want one, and if you do, you might be agreeably impressed by the cabin improvements that Toyota's made here. Those haven't extended to much improvement in the two areas the original model required: customer compromise, rear seat space and boot capacity. But that didn't put many early buyers off the first car, and we don't expect many, seduced by the looks of this one, to be bothered much by it either. Those who like the idea of the frugal Toyota hybrid drivetrain, will be better served by the brand's frumpier-looking Yaris Cross, or more likely by the kind of plush Lexus LBX you can also have for CHR money. But if it's the swept-back looks here you like, then nothing else in this segment will charm you in quite the same way. If cars were bought on purely rational grounds, you'd never choose one of these, but thankfully they're not. The CHR celebrates that, which is exactly why it's been so successful and will probably continue to be.